Hello, it's Shelley F. Knight, bringing you Positive Changes, a self-kick podcast. So today on the show, we are joined by John Kenny, and he's the relationship guy, founder of Interpersonal Relationship Coaching, author, speaker, and documentary maker. So hello there, John.
Hello, how are you doing, Shelley?
I'm good. Now, just in case anyone thinks they're going mad and they're thinking, I'm sure she's interviewed him before. I have. So we spoke, didn't we, back in episode 33, when you just became the relationship guy, and we're speaking about the fascinating world where there's different types of relationships. So there was the avoidant, the anxious avoidant, and secure. And I found it fascinating. I mean, I'm happily married, but I just thought I could really relate to relationships in the past. And I think it was really helpful for many people of why relationships don't work out, because it's sort of, you get great reassurance that, you know, in that time they was with someone, they were truly loved. It's just the nature of that relationship type. So I absolutely loved it. We've been busy between us, haven't we? Because that episode has gone on to win an award, which I was so proud of. And as we come to the, I know, well, thank you. Thank you for making it possible. So we're coming to the end of the first year of Positive Changes Self-Kick podcast. We thought we'd bring you back. But beyond that, you've come back because you created another change.
Pretty big one too. Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't really got the word. So, John, what's your new story of positive change?
So let me just start by giving you a little bit of background to it. As I probably said in the first time we talked, that I wrote a book a couple of years ago, about 3 years ago now, and it came out 2 years ago, last week, I think it was. And it was during the exploration of myself writing the book. What I wrote the book about was kind of my life story and how I'd learned to develop my sense of self, my sense of beliefs around relationships, around myself and everything else. And really kind of sort of struck on the chord of relational patterns and recognized that my relational pattern, I'd always dated anxious people. So with their attachment style. So when we grow up, we develop a certain sense of attachment as far as relationships are concerned. And that will do really, that's based on how we perceive the relationships around us. So if we grow up with a secure attachment, then generally we're pretty rounded as well as far as relationships are concerned. We don't have really many issues around them. If we're an anxious type person, then what generally has happened when we grow up is that we've dealt with the loss of what we perceive to be loss as kids in an anxious way. So we might scream, shout, cry, become very anxious based, stressed, craving, chasing, all that kind of stuff. An avoidant person will back away from pain, so they'll hide within themselves. And that was my type of how I managed pain when I was a kid, and all the way through my relationships up until this point have been based in avoiding pain. So I shut down if I feel like I'm getting too close to somebody, and I don't really know how to manage that level of deep connection. So something inside an avoidant will shut that down. And then we have someone who's anxious and avoidant, and they're generally quite messed up. They can sort of exhibit quite a lot kind of maybe narcissistic tendencies and stuff as well, because they're full on and then full off, and then they don't know what to do with themselves, and all sorts of manners of problems that can occur. So when I was writing my book, I realized how avoidant I really was, and spent my whole life dating anxious people, which I put down to being my dad. So my dad was very volatile, very anxious type connection with people. And if things aren't quite in his security space, he can have a tendency to kind of lose control of his emotions. Whereas my mum is an avoidant, so she shuts down and doesn't really know how to handle kind of deep connection, emotional situations. So when I met my wife, I actually realised that I'd spent my whole life dating my dad and married my mum, sorry. We were both avoidant. So if any problems came up in the relationship, whereas I've done a lot of personal development and I was trying to address the issues, because of her avoidant style, she wasn't able to engage in the process as much as we needed to in order for our relationship to be healthy. So eventually my avoidant style also kicked in because I couldn't see any resolution to any issues. And then we just gradually grew apart. So we ended up separating just before the new year, a couple of months ago. So that was my positive change. Because I realised that I wasn't happy, she wasn't happy. We were never really going to be happy because there was too many issues to kind of overcome. And no matter how much I tried to address those with her, she was never really going to engage over a long period of time to be able to bring the relationship back together. So we made a decision that it was probably best if we separated instead.
I don't know if it's the right to say, I love that. As in, like, congratulations on your separation. That's not what I'm going for, John. But I think there's something really powerful if you're the relationship guy and you're encouraging people in their relationships and you've recognized in yourself that you're still a work in progress and you've ended a relationship.
Yeah.
And I just think that's kind of brilliant, because we make positive changes, and whether that positive change was at one point, to get married, but life's always changing and we're changing as people. And as you say, like, you keep avoiding it, but fact of the matter is it no longer serves you. It isn't for you. Yeah. And it's kind of courageous.
Yeah, I think it's about, recognizing what you want in life. And I think that's, again, there's a lot of work that I've done around with my clients. It's about actually, what do you want from a relationship? And I felt quite incongruent, the fact that my relationship wasn't as healthy as it could have been. And I was helping people to work on finding sort of successful and healthy relationships. And I thought, well, actually, if this is the work that I'm doing, I really need to live that as well. And although I wasn't unhappy in the marriage, there was a lot missing. And it kind of, again, like I said, when I wrote the book, it made me realize that I was following something which still kept me. And I think we talked about in the first time we spoke about my safe space.
Yeah.
So when I was a kid, I spent a lot of time on my own. And that's where the avoidance sort of came in. Rather than chasing love and affection, I removed myself from the need for it, even though I was craving it and really wanted it. And again, it's a basic need in humans to be connected. My safe space, which avoided pain, was to go and be by myself. And I think, again, subconsciously, because I'd met my wife 7 years ago, before I'd done a lot of the work around relational beliefs and relational patterns, and I hadn't really specialized in relationships at that point. It was only sort of 2016 that I went into specializing in the relationships field and really kind of dove into all the background and how all of this works. So I was also a work in progress as I was doing all that research and working with people in a completely different way as a coach, and realized actually that I was still living in my old avoidant space, which was to feel safe by myself. So I'd chosen my wife, recognizing subconsciously that I never needed to deeply connect with her. Because it was never going to be possible, because of us both being avoidant personality styles, but her being a lot less down the progressive line or the self-development line than I was. I knew that she was never going to actually be the person that I wanted her to be in order to feel that deep connection with somebody. And that's why subconsciously I chose to be with her. I thought at the start that she was different because there was no volatile. I couldn't pick up subconsciously on that anxiousness. So for me, when we met, I'd already done a lot of changes. And when I met her, I thought, well, this is different. Is it right for me? And I thought at the time, yes, it is right. I can't feel this draw to her that I would have done before. And I was very aware of the fact that I'd always been drawn to anxious type people and the volatility. But actually, I didn't realize that I was gone too far the other way. And I'd actually chose someone who was avoidant to avoid that anxiousness. So therefore, I'd stepped into another space, which still kept me safe, which still kept me at a level of connection that my subconscious was comfortable with, but actually in a completely different way.
I love that. I was listening to it all, and there was just so many questions coming up for me, because you said that you've been doing the personal growth tools, that you've been doing your personal development over these like 7 years. And it reminds me of my friend, who's my life coach as well, Louise. And she talks about the lobster. And so lobsters like continually grow and they outgrow their shell. And their shell cracks away and they're left quite vulnerable. They sort of hide away a bit while they sort of, find their shell and carry on. And it is like that. We grow and we outgrow, feel a bit vulnerable, and then we move on. And I love that. But what stuck out for me, which is probably for my mum, because she believes in this, you said about 7 years ago, when you met us 7 years ago. Do you believe in like the 7-year itch or the 7-year cycle? Is that a thing in relationships and life?
It is kind of a thing, yes. So when we first meet someone, our brain switches into procreate mode. So it releases. So the feeling of being in love is a chemical thing. So when we initially meet someone and we get that trigger and everything starts to feel lovely and exciting and we're really drawn to somebody, that's your brain saying you need to mate with this person. Here's some hormones. Go have babies type of thing. And then after that finishes, then you then hopefully have developed a deeper sense of love for somebody and care for somebody and connection with somebody, that it moves on to the next stage. And that can last up to 7 years, but it's generally around about 3 years or so that might kind of exist in your brain chemistry. And therefore, after that then starts to die off, it depends whether there's enough connection and enough for you to work with after that's done. And 7 years is generally a good time for you to realize that actually this works or it doesn't work, because the chemicals have already switched off, and then your brain sort of says, is there enough here for me to want to be with this person now? So that's kind of how it works.
I love that. My husband will love it even more, because we've been together 14 years, so he's all right now till the 21 mark, isn't he? You can have a little breather. What I loved, Ben, you speaking about the marriage, because I think a lot of people will be like, yeah, love what you said, John. You said, I wasn't unhappy in my marriage. There was just stuff missing.
Yeah.
What does that feel like?
There's an emptiness of it. It's there's that never quite being fulfilled with the space that you're in with that person. Although there was love there, and we were very close at one stage. There was always something that I couldn't quite put my finger on that meant that we weren't as connected as I'd like us to be. And that eventually became quite stressful, without me actually realizing how stressful it was becoming. And it was just this, sometimes there was like an emptiness in me, which I thought, actually, I want more than this. I want to feel more than this. And that's when I realized actually that things weren't right. And I did address it in the relationship, obviously, as a relationship coach. I would suggest people do before they decide to split up, and see if they can have those types of conversations which bring more connection to the relationship. But it was never, the changes were never sustained. So there was never it was kind of not disappointing, but I guess in my mind it was disappointing. My brain was going, oh no, here we go again. It's not what you want. And to keep going round and round in those types of circles was quite stressful at times, even though I hadn't realized. And I did get a little bit, I wouldn't say depressed, but I used to get low days, and they might last for 2 or 3 days sometimes. And I couldn't really put my finger on what it was. And then obviously the work I was doing on myself, clients, right, because like I said, writing my book, it became very clear that I realized what was missing.
Yeah.
But was never able to kind of get that in the relationship I was with
So you talk about connection. I love that word. I really do. It's something that always came across at the end of life, people always say what's really important in life is connection, and whether it is connection to yourself, a loved one, universe, whatever you believe in. So if you're in a relationship, as a coach, you're saying that you tell people before they do that leap of faith, either into the marriage or out, to focus on connection. How can people find that? What is connection in a relationship?
So I think it's different for everyone else, but I mean, we could sort of touch on the sort of love languages here. It's about feeling loved, and it's about being able to give love unconditionally. So when you're with somebody, you feel that closeness, that attachment to them, which again, a healthy attachment, secure, safe, and really cared about, that they can make you their priority when necessary, and you can do the opposite. And you both do that freely. So it's not like a compromise. It's not like I have to. It's actually, if this makes you happy, I can suspend what my needs are for this time and be happy that you're happy. And I've said this before to people, it's not about people pleasing. That's a completely different thing. And that's very unhealthy. So I don't mean to people please. But I mean, again, a reciprocation of affection, that you feel happy that the other person is happy, rather than I'm just doing this because they want it, or I'm just doing this because they need it. It's actually, I want you to be happy, and that makes me happy, making you happy. So therefore I'm willing to do that. And that deeper level of connection, I think, comes from that ability to put your stuff to one side and say, I can be there for you. And again, like, that's reciprocated. And one of the things that kind of really registered with my wife was I was having a bad day, and she came downstairs and she said something or another, and I said, I'm just having a day today. And she went, oh, so am I. I'm having a day. This has happened. This has happened. This has happened. And I thought, this is not about you at this precise moment. This is about me. And that was just like an indicative kind of thing that she would do. Avoidant type personality, which says, I don't know how to be there in your bad space here. My stuff's worse. Whereas being able to, again, I don't even know if she was having a bad day. I think it was just a defense to say, I don't know how to be there for you, so I'm going to make my excuses and leave. Rather than saying, oh, what's up? How you feeling? Can I help? Which again is what I would do, even though I'm an avoidant person, because I'd worked on that side of myself, recognizing that I wanted actually to connect to someone on a deeper level. And being a therapist in the past and being a coach now, I'm generally able to put my stuff to one side anyway and say, hey, what do you need? But it was at those types of points when I thought, actually, I don't feel safe emotionally with you, because I don't feel like you can be there for me. And it's not like I had these very often. It was just in those times when I really needed someone just to put their arms around me and tell me it was all going to be okay. She was kind of, oh no, I can't do that. I don't do that. This is not how I function. So she made it about her instead. And again, you just sort of then feel quite disheartened and think, actually, this past person is never going to be the person I really need them to be in order to make me feel okay.
I think there's going to be so many people listening to that and nodding, because even I was thinking, like, my husband's done that in the past. I get really bad insomnia and I come down and say, oh, I'm really tired. And he says sort of like, yeah, so am I. But serious, I know you're an insomniac. What can I do to help? And so he does that. He's there, in sickness and in health and things like that. But I think so many people, I should imagine millions of people are thinking, oh my God, that's happening in my relationship. Or you say, like, I had a really bad day at work today. Yeah, so did I. Or the kids were driving me mad today. So what? Yeah. And I think people are just doing that all the time.
They are. And again, I think statistically about 89% to 94% of the population just go around and round and round in circles doing the same things over and over again, because firstly, they're unaware of the cycle that they're in, and secondly, don't really know what to do about it.
So that would be...
thirdly, don't do anything about it when they know anyway. But sometimes change, the familiar is easier than change, so we stay in the same space.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm really positive about change. I always think, come on, you've got this, don't stay where you are, especially if you're unhappy, like you're saying, there was that emptiness and not feeling fulfilled. And to me, I'd be like, let's dive into that. But people almost feel secure. I don't know if that's the right word, because obviously we're talking about security and emotions, but they feel more secure maybe staying in a half-hearted relationship than leaping into the unknown, being on your own. Who am I, without being someone other? Well, I don't like the term other half, but who am I on my own? And people don't do it because life's too short. I want a child. We've got children, we've been together 4 years, and you're thinking it doesn't make it right, which is why I was so passionate when you said I'm the relationship guy and I've just ended my relationship. I just thought you need to come and tell people that it's okay. I'm not trying to end marriages, by the way. That's not I'm not on a mission.
No.
But I am kind of on a mission.
Yeah, it's okay to make difficult choices in order to get what you want.
Yeah.
And I like to use the word safe rather than secure, because if I felt secure, I'd have been okay. I didn't feel secure, but my safe space, I think people's safe space is what your brain says, I'm trying to keep you safe here, stay the same, because the familiar feels more comfortable. So it's a comfortable space rather than a secure space. If you don't feel secure, and that's why these kind of problems will keep arising all of the time, because the insecurity that you feel will always surface at some stage. And then what we have a tendency to do is never resolute what that might be. So we never resolve what the problem is. And we just go around in the circles of repeating the same types of issues over and over again, until most of the time it takes you to get to a specific pain point where you think, I just really can't do this anymore. But I think with my case, because of the work I've done, it was, I don't want to do this anymore. I could have continued quite easily. I could have just plodded along. But in my mind, it was, I made a conscious decision. Actually, I don't want this. I want something else. I want something more. I want something that's going to make me feel better. And so that's a choice that we need to kind of come to.
And I think that's really powerful, that you could have stayed. And the people that are listening, sort of like, I don't know, the guys that are out there working, overworking, coming home into a relationship that doesn't fulfill them, the stay-at-home mums, all those kind of people, they could stay there because of, got the mortgage, or they've planned the wedding, or they've got the kids together, or it's what their parents expect. They could stay there, or they could make a choice to, see what else is out there.
Yeah. Make that positive choice.
Yeah. But we do stay stuck, don't we? And I think it gets more complicated. I think the older we get, well, I don't know, maybe when the older you get, you think, well, I've been for so long and I want kids, and my biological clock's ticking, or maybe you get like me, older and more feisty, and you think, well, I'm not tolerating it. but I think most people just think, especially from a fertility point of view, that, oh, well, with them, what if I leave?
Yeah. There's lots of things to kind of overcome biologically, as well as there is psychologically and emotionally. Like you said, your hormones are massively powerful. And if they're telling you one thing, but actually it might not be the right thing for you, it is kind of difficult to overcome what your body's telling you. And it could be a massive kind of compulsion to just continue down a road because your body's telling you one thing, but actually your mind is telling you something completely different. And it's a difficult choice then, and distinction to make in order to decide what's the best thing for you to do. I've got a client at the moment, and she had a childhood where she had sort of 7 siblings and really never got any time, love, or affection. And she married a guy and had kids just because she wanted unconditional love. So as soon as the kids came along, the husband was pretty much non-existent because she didn't want him as a relationship. She just wanted him to provide her with children so that she could have this unconditional love from her kids. And she's put all of her time into her children. And now the kids are 18 and 20 or something, and they don't need her anymore. So the unconditionality has disappeared, and she's completely lost, and doesn't really know what to do with herself, because everything she's ever wanted is now being taken away from her again, like it was when she was a kid. So she's in this really messed up space, not knowing what to do with herself, because her purpose her underlying need to feel loved and to give love unconditionally has now been taken away from her as it was when she was a child. But it was her need to feel unconditional love that drove her to have children. The marriage lasted a couple of years because she had the 2 kids and that was it. Ta-da, mate. That's all I wanted to do.
That must happen all the time, because you're saying like almost that your relationship type comes from your childhood, whether you're avoidant, anxious or secured, depends a lot on your childhood. So surely loads of people out there, loads of women out there have had children based on that, I don't know, craving, that desire to give love they didn't have or something like that. So there's going to be loads of people, I want to say, waking up to the fact that their adult relationship doesn't work because they didn't go in for the adult relationship. They went in for that unconditional love that was lacking.
Yeah, definitely. There's quite a few people I've worked with over the sort of 15 years or so I've been doing this that have come and spoke to me and said, Doc, I don't know what to do with myself because my kids don't need me anymore. Or I don't feel like my kids need me anymore, because that obviously isn't true. The kids do, but it's a different now. There's a difference there that they're not quite able to come to terms with, that they don't need me as much. I don't feel purposeful. I don't feel like the role that I've created for myself is necessary anymore. But it's generally been based on the fact they've given everything to these children, and because of their need to be loved and to give love, and it can only last for so long.
So when there's not an adult relationship and there's not the dependency of like the mother and child relationship, does it just come back to working on yourself and doing that self-love?
Yeah, I think it's important that it's difficult to know at the start why we're doing these types of things, because we're oblivious to our choices generally. But it's important that you have that good relationship with yourself before you even contemplate having children, I would suggest, because again, otherwise you'll end up with generally kids that will grow up with similar or same issues or whatever issues because you haven't resolved yours. There are some people that don't do that. There are some people that have had a lot of issues as they were growing up and they just said, I'm just not going to do that with my kids, and they show them the complete opposite. But again, bringing my client in, case in point, she's made a rod for her own back now because her kids, she's done too much for them. They're overly reliant on her, and she doesn't have a life because of what she's done for them previously. And now she's completely lost. That they are now, not so much during COVID because there's nowhere for them to go, but they have other lives, and she's really lost without them in that space that she wanted them to stay in or needed them to stay in.
It really interesting, because I'm just thinking, like, when you are a mum, so we've got 4 children and you don't really get that quiet time, and if you're going out to work or stay at home mum or running a business and being a mum, whatever you're doing, it's really hard, or it seems hard on some days, to just find quiet, to be with yourself, have a cup of tea, do a meditation, plan for the day ahead. So to actually sit and think, am I happy? Does this serve me? What kind of parent am I? And all those other issues of love. We just don't create the time, do we?
No, because again, most of the time, like I said, 89 to 94% of people don't even know they're doing it anyway. So they just go round and around and around. And then it's only when they reach a specific point that they go, actually, what is going on here? I don't feel very happy. I don't feel very fulfilled. I don't feel very comfortable in this space. Something's not right. What is it? How do I change it?
So COVID's kind of made everyone stop. I mean, I know like my husband was out of work for most of 2020. I have to think what year it was then, John. I think, what year is it? 2020, he was out of work. And, we stopped and we loved it. We're one of those weird families that we just love being together. But I know that I'm, a bit of a wonky donkey in life and don't go with the average. So surely when people are stopping and they're not working and running out the door and going places and meeting up with girlfriends, things like that, it kind of got real in 2020. So have you seen, the 89 to 94% relationships then thinking, this relationship's crap, I'm going? Has there been a relationship breakdown surge as we've had to be quiet and sit with ourselves for longer?
There's definitely been I mean, I know a fair few kind of family law solicitors and divorce solicitors and stuff, and they have been busier than they've ever been, because people have spent, things have changed so much. They just recognise the dynamics of their relationship being with each other for 24/7. It just doesn't work. They've come to that realization that their relationship just doesn't function when they're spending too much time together and they're not in the same space. So yeah, I think it's had a massive impact on the sustainability of relationships, and as basically slapped people in the face and said, now you've got to live with this 24/7. What's it like really? It's been too much. Because again, it's like when people have kids and then the kids leave home, and then you're like, well, we've spent the last 20 years or so kind of focusing on the family. What do we actually do together? What kind of things do we have in common? How close are we really? And then that's quite a trigger point as well for separation. So in some aspects, it's made it actually better for people. So people haven't had the time to spend as a family. They haven't had time to spend as a couple, and they've actually come back together like they were when they were first dating, and they always wanted to see each other, and they've really enjoyed each other's company. So there have been positives to it as well. I've had a few clients that have spent time away from, because they couldn't see certain people, so they've spent time away from difficult relationships, and then that's made them make a decision they don't want to be in that relationship anymore because they realise how much better they've felt on their own. And then I've had other clients who have thought the relationship was a bit of a mess, but have missed the person so much that they've really wanted to see them again, and it's made them realise how much they really care about this person. So I think everybody's different, but I think on the majority of the side of things from not necessarily the work that I've done, although I have had a fair few people contact me and said, look, I've spent far too much time in this person's company, please help me to manage this, or whether I need to be on my own. And we've had those conversations, but especially from the solicitors I've spoken to, it's definitely been their busiest time that they've ever experienced when it comes to separations and divorces.
Yeah, I did wonder if that was the case. And I hope it provides reassurance to people who think, God, it was only a few months and my relationship ended. But I think it was a real wake-up call for a lot of people. It's quite interesting what you said about spending more time together, because like I said, I absolutely loved it. We didn't have an income, which was scary, but then it was like one big long summer holidays, and it was really cute. A lot of Play-Doh, cooking from scratch and stuff like that. And I said, my husband and I have been together like 14 years. But my non-negotiable, I've got a morning routine I'm very strict about, but my other non-negotiable is that every week we have a date night, because we've got 4 children, a cockapoo, 11 fish, both run our own companies. But, you just have to connect. Like, why did we fall in love? What made it? And the kids hate that date night, John, because we snog, he'll pinch my bum, and they have to go to bed early. But it's just one night.
Yeah.
What we were saying earlier, like, everyone's too busy and we don't sit with ourselves, but you can, schedule in that time, can't you, for a snog or whatever you want to do?
Of course you can. If it's important enough to you, you'll make the time.
Yeah.
And there's no reason why you couldn't do that.
So
it's just about wanting to do it enough.
Yeah. No, I just love it. I mean, like, I'm heading towards my 50s rather than my 40s. I'm the other end. And we still have laughter. And that's really key for me, that I like the humor and the banter.
Yeah.
And I think that helps keep us young, along with 4 kids as well. But it is the want to make it work. And to us, we often think we're getting it wrong, because people say, oh, you have to work hard at your relationships. We're like, crap, we don't really work at it. We just, reconnect once a week.
That
for sure.
Just goes to show that, doesn't it? The perception is all about what we're brought up believing. And I would, again, I don't agree with that at all. A relationship can be easy. It can seem like there's no hard work. It can seem like you don't really have to try, because it feels right and you are on the same page. And like your relationship seems to be, it does feel like it's pretty much like, we don't really need to work hard at this, because it just all falls into place. And relationships can be like that with the right person. It's only when we keep repeating the same difficult patterns in our relationships that they do feel like hard work, or whether we haven't really resolved any of the issues that we've got in ourselves, that we create hard work as well, because we don't know how to do an easy calm, peaceful space. So therefore we're looking for chaos, and we're looking for difficulty, and we're looking for drama, and therefore we create that. So therefore our relationships are so difficult. Well, it's only because I don't know how to sit with peace that I make the difficulties happen. So it's not just about meeting the right person, it's about being in the right space for yourself. It's about understanding that actually if you want a loving, caring, deeply connected, happy, fun relationship, you can have it if you allow it.
I love that, because it seems like everything just comes back to who we are, really. Do you know what I mean? Like, we so often blame someone external to us, don't we? Like, well, he said that's why I felt wrong, and she did that, so I'm going to do this. And like some people, I see it in my friends, they had an argument like 5 years ago, and they're like, yeah, but do you remember that time he said that? Or do you remember that time he, texted that woman? And I'm just like, you either need to work through it, or let it go. But people just, blame sort of gets in the way, doesn't it? That they sort of keep replaying the same story in their head.
Yeah, the first thing my coach said to me when I had a session with her after a separation was, what was your role? What was your role in this separation? What was your role that made this relationship not work? And she made me focus on me. Like you said, step away from the blame. There's no point to us sort of saying, okay, what did she do that caused these problems? The first question was, okay, have you thought about what your role is in why this relationship didn't work? And then we had a conversation about, yes, I completely understand what my role is. And therefore, that was really good, because then again, like, your blame is a very negative emotion and it causes a lot of resentment and difficulties. And if we can step back and say, okay, what did I do that enabled this to come to this sort of space? And again, I'd realized what my role was, and I was able to sort of say to my coach, that's what I did and that's how I felt. And, I could have maybe done a bit more, but actually when the push come to shove, I don't think what I did or anything that I did would have made a huge difference in the end. And I would have just prolonged the cycle that we were going through of, it's okay for a little while and then it goes back to normal. It was okay for a little while and then it goes back to normal. And again, I don't think that would have changed anything, because they needed change from the other side for that to happen. But I recognize what my role was in why this relationship didn't work.
I think that's really valuable. I mean, blame does have really negative sound about it. But when they ask what your role is, it's almost bringing an awareness that you're accountable, aren't you? That, what's your accountable role in this situation? And I just think, like, because what we're not changing, we're choosing, aren't we? So if we're not changing to be better in that relationship, we're choosing to have that level of relationship. So maybe we should use accountability or your role rather than the blame game.
Yeah, definitely. It's, I like what you said there about choosing.
I think there's choices every day. So we kind of, if you're not choosing to walk away or choosing to hear that person or hear yourself, that's what you get, isn't it?
Exactly. You get what you state, what you sort of again, it's again, a lot comes down to what your relationship is with yourself, what your your kind of beliefs are. Do you believe that you deserve any better? Do you believe you can have any better? Do you know what even anything better feels like? Is this your normal? I was talking to a client the other day, and we were talking about her childhood, and I said, out of a percentage of sort of 0 to 100, how much love, affection and attention do you think you got as a child? And she said, I don't know. She said, maybe 20%. And I said, in the relationship that you've just finished with, I said that has been really toxic and unhealthy. What was that? She said, I don't know, maybe 25, 30%. I think, so you decided to choose something that was just slightly better than what you'd always had. And she said, I can see that as a pattern. She said, I've always, because I had 20% as a kid, 30% felt better, but actually there's still 70% missing. And so therefore, she's doing a lot of work on actually allowing herself to see that actually she wants 70, 80, 90% from someone now. She doesn't want to, she's going to start to recognize when all they can offer her is 25, 30%. But she's always had relationships which felt better than they did when she was a kid, but they've still been a lot of stuff that she would never get from that relationship, because she'd settled for something compared to what she had when she was a child. So it's about getting to, okay, what do I want? I want to feel 80%, 90% from this person. I want, because they're never going to really give us 100% because they need to keep some stuff for themselves. But I want to feel like this relationship is at least in the high 80s and low 90s for me to feel happy and fulfilled. And that's what I deserve. And that's what I'm going to allow. And then I'm not going to take anything less anymore.
I had goosebumps then because I was just thinking, wow, like a really simple tool or 2 questions. So like, what was your percentage in your childhood? And it's like 20%. What was percentage in the relationship? And it was like 25, 30, because it's better than what she's known.
Yeah.
And to me, I was thinking 25%, that's crap.
Yeah,
but
it's totally crap, right?
but then I totally get how that would feel. It's still better than she'd known. So this got me all feisty inside, John, because I'm now thinking I'm really passionate about self-love, self-worth, care, all that stuff, because I just think we have to love ourselves, and how we love ourselves, which I highly suggest you do it to a high standard. When we love ourselves, that sets the bar for any other relationship we accept.
Yeah.
But her bar is like 25%. That's not even average, is it? That's just like not even halfway.
Do you know what I would say? I think that is probably average, but it's not even halfway. I think a lot of people that struggle with their relationships, obviously the people that have healthy relationships as they grow up, that's a completely different story. And also we just need to think it's about perception as well. So it's not actually the truth sometimes that you only got 20% as a kid, but if that's how you feel, that's how you're going to relate to your next relationships. So you might have had lots of love and affection as a child, but if it did only feel to you like if you felt like there was a lot missing, then just a small percentage increase on that, how it feels, is going to make you think, oh well, at least this is better than, this is good actually, because I have never received this before. But it's only after being in that relationship a while you think actually there's still a hell of a lot missing here. And I now make a decision that I want more. I want a lot more, and I deserve a lot more. Like you said, working on that self-love, working on that self-acceptance, working on self-worth and what you want for your life. And if it's not enough for you, it's okay for you to make a decision to say, actually, this is not enough. Can that person then I'm with, if you can get them to come together with you in order to change that, then that's a great thing to do. But if not, then it's about you deciding that maybe this relationship isn't the right one for you, and it's okay for you to move on.
Now, I was going to say something profound, but all I'm going to say is, no, gobsmack's not a nice word. I know my mum listens to the podcast. I better not say that. I've just said it though, haven't I? But I'm 47, and in 47 years of trying to work out relationships, in this interview, John, you've just nailed it for me. Because I look at people with my high self-love, self-worth, self-esteem, and everything else, basically high standards. And I think, why would you tolerate that? Why are you putting up with that? Mm. And after 47 years, you've put it really clear, because I'm a simple soul, that because that's how they're brought up. So if someone had 10%, 50%, and they're in a okay relationship, to them, it must feel, as I said, we're not saying it is, but to them, speaking their truth, it feels better than they've ever known. Because from the outside looking in, I'm sort of like, why would you stay there? Why are you still there? Because obviously I'm comparing it to my childhood or my husband.
Yeah.
But after 47 years, I've suddenly just gone, yes, John. It's because we're only allowing ourselves, to love as we've known, maybe a little bit extra.
Yeah. It's just that a little bit extra that makes us feel that this is better. And then this is what most relationships must be like, real relationships, because I never felt this before. It must be great. But then again, we don't realize probably until a little bit further down the line, and actually it's not great. It's just a little bit better than what we're used to. I remember when I had my first relationship, when I left home, I thought it was the best thing since sliced bread, because she was actually showing me love and affection, but she was obsessed. It wasn't healthy. She was had a lot of issues of her own, and very chaotic, very toxic space I was in. But when I first met her, I was only 19 when I met her. And because I hadn't felt that much love as a child, when I got that, I thought, wow, this is amazing. But then after being in that relationship for a little while, I thought, this is very destructive. this isn't really love, but everything else, it was, again, I'd make, for instance, say 20% as a kid, I was getting from her what felt like 100% at the start, but actually because it was obsessively and excessive and toxic, it wasn't. It was all about her needs. So I actually wasn't really getting any love at all. It was all about the love she was trying to get from me. So therefore, when I realized she was actually not giving me very much at all, she was probably giving me maybe 20% still, 30%, maybe a little bit more. So it was still a bit more than I felt like I might have got as a kid, but it was completely not what I thought it was at the start. So again, it's just about recognizing that it was never really about her giving me love. It was about how much love she could get from me. But obsessed over me at the start, which made me feel very special, wanted, needed, cared for, and everything else that I'd never had before.
I just find it fascinating. I think we should come on every few months and just update the world about relationships. Like little quarterly show, the John and Shelley show. I just love it. You just blow me away with your knowledge, your honesty. And as I said at the start, I didn't come on to say like, your marriage or breakdown is a positive change, because I know that sounds slightly oxymoron, but I think there's absolute power in the work you do. And when you've had that wake up call yourself saying, hang on, I've written a book about it, I'm the relationship guy, but my relationship's not working, I just thought people need to know. Mm-hmm. So for people listening today, including my mum, sorry that I said the word GOB, for people listening today, and they've got that niggle, they're sitting there maybe looking at their other half thinking, not keen, love, what would be the one positive change they could do today?
I would suggest that if there are issues in the relationship, if it's a long-term relationship and you actually really want it to work, then you address the things that are not working for you in the relationship first with the person that you're with. If that's something you've tried before, they haven't come over to your side at all to help you to have the healthy relationship and to meet some more of the needs that you want, and actually are you doing that for them as well? And does the things that you do come from a I want to space rather than I have to space or I should space? But I think, like you said earlier, it's about reflecting on yourself first, is to really work out your own idea about who you are, why you've chosen to be in the relationship you're in, or why you're single. The people that I work with mostly are single people that are looking to find relationships because they've never found a successful relationship before. So it's actually, why am I in this space? What are my own relational patterns? What are my own relational beliefs? How do I feel about myself? What do I allow in my relationships? What do I allow for myself? And then once you've got that honed down, you can, somebody at the door, you can then see what it is that you actually really want, and then whether that's possible to get from the space that you're in right now. And if not, what changes do you need to make that happen?
I think that's fabulous. I say, there's got to be so many people out there. I know the family lawyer's been busy. I think you're going to be inundated now. So we'll put your contact details in the show notes. But as always, John Kenny, an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us today.
No, you're very welcome. Thank you for having me again. And congratulations on your success.
Thank you for being part of it, lovely. If you enjoyed today's episode, please ensure you subscribe and do leave a positive review. If you would like to create your own positive changes, head on over to shelleyfknight.com and you can buy yourself a copy of Positive Changes, a self-cookbook. If you want some positivity until the next show, come join us over on Facebook. That's Shelley F. Knight, Life Goes On. So I've been Shelley F. Knight, and as always, you've been amazing.